All right, we are live. Welcome back.
Alrighty then.
Another episode of the best darn show on the internet, the Over Sharon Show. Yeah, I'm
Isn't
really
it?
excited
Isn't it?
today. Yee. I'm joined today with my co-host, as always, the lovely Sharon, and we have a quote for
Grazie.
you. Prego, prego, bella. Yeah, that's one thing I can do is totally speak some Italian. Well, not like fluently, but I can get
You were
by.
you were there, so
I get
you
by.
can speak some of it. I've
Yeah,
been studying a little bit on my Duolingo.
there you go. Yeah, I've been working on my Espanol, but this is in English. Today's quote is believe in yourself even when no one else will. And this quote is attributed to Sasquatch,
Allegedly.
allegedly by the internet. So I don't know. I think this proves that he's real then, right? Because if he has quotes on the internet, he's got to be real.
I love that quote. It's so cute.
Yeah,
Oh my God, it's so true, you know?
it
You gotta
is.
believe in yourself, even if nobody else will. Hey, you in your life, you could feel like a Sasquatch. You could feel like a Bigfoot, like nobody cares, like nobody believes in you. But hey, all it takes is for you to believe in yourself.
That's right. I mean, where would we be, if Hitler didn't believe in himself, right?
Right? We'd be living a different world, different reality. So I am gonna pull from the Tarot of the Divine.
Yeah,
It's
here we go.
I like it because it's inspired by deities, folklore, and fairy tales from around the world. So that's kind of like Sasquatch Bigfoot like. So I
Like that.
have pulled the Knight of Cups, and he's holding an eagle. He looks like Alaskan-ish or like Inuit. I don't know yet.
Oh, that guy's seen Bigfoot. He definitely has. That guy
Right.
knows.
The guy gets it, right? Welcome, Speedy Lee.
Oh, what's up, Speedy? Yeah, we'll give a quick shout out to the chat after this
Yeah.
for Shizzle. Knight of Cups. All right, great. I mean, we got cups. We all know what cups mean, right? Emotion.
Emotions,
Um,
water,
it's a container.
feelings.
Yeah, exactly. There was remove pin. Okay, so we have the knight, and depending on how you look at it, if you look at it esoterically, the knight is kind of the highest position, higher than the kings. The king is stationary, the knight is actually in motion. In that one, you see the knight is stopped at the water with his cup.
Hmm.
So is he there to refill his cup? Is he there to add his cup to all the ocean and the rest of consciousness? Is that what he's there to do? Or is he just here, put me again. Is he just hanging out with his eagle? And I like how he has an eagle there. Maybe that's an eagle or some kind of hawk because it symbolizes the air and the communication. So he's like a master of communication. Then also you think of hunting, being able to sustain himself, just like Bigfoot.
There
He's
you
real. I'm
go.
telling you, all the signs are pointing. At the end of the show, I'm going to flip a coin, guys, and if it lands the right way, that's it. We're deciding if he exists. So that'd be
So
great.
I will read from the book. It's called Halibu the Hunter, and it's from Mongolia and
Ooh,
Mongolian legend. So I was kind of close. He kind of looked Inuit like, you know what I mean? They kind of all look a little bit alike, right? Asian
yeah.
type Northern Native Americans and Asians, they kind of have similar look to them. All right. It says the Knight of Cups is a messenger. Hellebu is kind and gentle while also willing to take a stand for what he believes in. Remember believing in yourself?
I do.
Hellebu provides for his village, and after befriending a dragon, he
Ooh.
willingly sacrifices himself to save everyone he loves. So, upright, this means chivalry, affection, invitations, taking action, meaningful gifts. And then reversed, it means heartbreak, infidelity, lack of diplomacy, moodiness, and pettiness. So there we have our Knight of Cups from Mongolia, Halabu the hunter.
I
And you
like
were right. See, you said he was a hunter. He hunted for his food.
yeah, exactly. I also like how they show the dragon, right? Like slaying the dragon, because that always is, well, not always, but it could be a reference to slaying the dragon within. Just
Right.
like St. George, you have the cross of St. George, it's the X cross, and then you see the paintings of him where he has his sword at the serpent's neck or the dragon's neck or whatever it is. And esoterically, I've looked into some things, and it's that kind of symbolizes that battle. That's this thing we talk about all the time in the Oprah Sharon show, right? The battle of Kurukshetra, if you will, like the Bhagavad Gita. It's the same thing. It's that inner battle of battling your own desires, and it could be like fighting a dragon. And see, this guy lost, but he still tried, right? You never know.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes like the whole concept of like sacrificing can be talking about the spiritual as well.
Mm.
Because
He
um
sacrificed his own old self, maybe, right?
yes. And his like his material desires, and you know what I mean? We've been talking about, well, I don't know, have we talked about it yet? No, we haven't. Maybe we will be talking about it next week.
We will.
About fasting.
Yeah,
Sorry, clearing my throat.
no worries.
But yeah, fasting is a method of like putting your physical desires in check because it's not a hard thing to fast, but it is hard for the mind because the mind says, "Oh, you're hungry, you're snacky, you feel like having this, you feel like having that." And you can just be like, "No, I don't need to. I'm going to distract myself. I have plenty of things to do to get done." You can go do them and you can forget that you're hungry in your body, like, "Oh, oops, I'm not hungry anymore. I guess you were right." So um that whole like sacrifice could be spiritual as well.
One,
And I know you're probably checking the chat.
yeah, I was pinning, but no, what you said is 100% because that is, that desire to eat is a real one. It's connected to our survival allegedly. And if we believe that 100% for sure, then we're definitely going to be like, we need to eat, damn it.
Yeah, and we're very tied to, because this, materialist world we live in, we're tied to that materialism, and we've gotten so comfortable with just eating all the time, snacking, grazing.
Grazing,
we're not
yes.
we're not cows, people. But
Sure.
yeah, and there's lots of doctors over the years who have found that um grazing and eating over, the over the day, like just regularly eating, raises your insulin and keeps your insulin high, which begins to tell your body to just store everything to fat. So your
Uh,
body doesn't have time to rest and clear things out. And during the periods of rest, of like not digesting food and not addressing the food, it has time to do cleanup. So a lot of people have and a lot of doctors out there are talking about it now. There's tons of YouTube channels talking about it. They've been doing it for years now. I was fasting like at least 10 years ago. Um was it? Yeah. Or more. Um so yeah, I've re-engaged my interest in the whole fasting because you forget. Sometimes you forget, you do something and it's helpful and it works, and then you forget and you just go on and you get back into your, your little merry way and your slump. And so it's been a useful tool to watch the mind, it's
I can
it's
imagine.
good. Yeah.
Awesome. That's really good. I'm happy for you. I might try dabbling in it soon. Also, I was talking to Elizabeth about it a little bit, and the other day, and then I I told her, she's like, "Oh, what'd you talk about on the podcast?" Because just so everybody knows, we recorded yesterday for next Thursday, so it's going to be a little weird, but we played with it and it's funny. We made jokes. We're going to be talking about the Dow next week, so check that out next Thursday. Yeah, but so I said we talked about fasting, and she's like, "Oh, do you want to fast because Sharon's fasting?" Like I was like, "Oh no, I already been thinking about this." Like, but she just reminded me. It's like that thing you said, right? You forget sometimes.
Yeah.
Blue
Yeah.
Cucina said, "Eat more." Yes, eat more. What's up, Blue Cucina?
Rice. I think it's a bowl of rice.
Oh yeah. Oh, eat more rice. Yeah. What's up, Zerlath, Dissident Jones, Speedy Lee,
Yes. Welcome,
Tony,
everyone. Tony
Adam?
Corey. Yes, Adam. So but yeah, that was just a little side note because, you know, today's kind of a chit chat, even though we know we're gonna at least talk about Bigfoot.
We better after the art I made. People are going to be pissed if we don't talk about Bigfoot.
Yeah, yeah. It's not a it's definitely not a what is it called when you clickbait? It's not a
Yeah,
clickbait.
it's
We
total.
we are
Yeah,
going to talk about it.
it is total clickbait though. Bigfoot's always clickbait. You're just like, wait, what? I've always been interested really in the idea of Bigfoot. I think probably since I was a kid and I've heard about it, and I used to like to go in the woods a lot, and I'd be like, man, I want to see Bigfoot one day. And of course, you watch the movies like Harry and the
Harry
Henderson.
and the Hendersons.
Yeah, John Lithgow. That guy is plays such a good family man and then such a good psychopath too. John Lithgow. I don't know if you.
Oh,
But every time I see him in a movie where he's a psychopath, I just think of him going home to Harry. Like and his family. He's just a psychopath at night. It's cool.
I
But
only recently watched Harry and the Hendersons in the past month or two because of Cody. He wanted to watch
oh,
it. And I mean, he's seen it many times. I was the one who's under the rock, so it was my first time watching Harry and the Hendersons.
oh, that's cool. Seems
It
like a
was
pretty
cute.
cool movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in years, but yeah, I've always been fascinated, and I've always watched the Bigfoot shows. And then at one point, I'm like, when I'm watching these shows, I'm like, there's no way that they found Bigfoot because this show was aired like, or they recorded it, I don't know, a year ago or whatever. By the time you get to watch it on TV, so I always knew they weren't going to find it, but I was still really interested in it because there was this one show I can't even remember what it was, but originally everybody said when I was growing up, Bigfoot's like in the Pacific Northwest. That's the spot. I never heard of him being anywhere else. And then you hear like the abominable snowman,
Abominable.
abominable. He's just out there doing crunches all day. Man, you got a sick.
They're very strong. They have a lot of muscles.
Yeah, they totally do. He's got like a 12 pack instead of a 6 pack because he's a superhuman. But I came across this one show, and these guys were Bigfoot hunters, but they were doing it all over the US, and they even did it in Connecticut, out in the eastern part of Connecticut, more toward where the casinos are. It's all like woods and stuff. And they heard some like tree knocking and stuff like that. And I guess before we get into the law of one stuff, maybe we should go over like just some like Bigfoot basics for the heck of it, and like, so I'll just finish telling my little story, and then you could tell your fun stories about Cody, and because that's interesting to me too. I want to hear a lot about that. So I was,
Speaking of Cody, he's in the
uh,
chat.
yeah, he is, and on that show they talked about the skunk ape. What's up, Cody? That's in Florida. They talked about different things, and they would give like eyewitness testimony, and they'd like recreate the scene. And the
Which show were
people,
you talking about?
I honestly can't remember if anybody in the chat can remember, but it was on probably like the mid to late 2000s. Um, Hunting Bigfoot or something, maybe. I don't know, who knows. But they would go all over the United States, and that's when I realized that I'm like, oh, maybe this is bigger than I thought. Maybe I will one day get to see a Bigfoot. And then later as I got into my study of whatever this stuff is, metaphysics and the occult and all these things, I heard about people seeing Bigfoot and then also saying that he might be some kind of interdimensional creature or something, like maybe he disappears. But the evidence that I saw like on those shows, they made some really good points because I remember they took a full deer carcass and they just left it out and had a camera, like a game camera, but it just took elapsed time footage or whatever. And they showed how fast it degraded. It degraded in like, within like a week or so, you couldn't, there was like nothing left, maybe bones. And then I don't know, was pretty crazy though, but I
But
guess
they
left
didn't
out open.
show like an animal coming to eat at it or anything.
Oh, maybe there was like a little bit coming to eat and stuff like that, but it wasn't anything crazy. I can't remember how they did it, but the thing like decomposed pretty quickly. And they say like in the Pacific Northwest and where it's very moist, shit just grows over it. It just like disappears. So that was one of their theories about the bodies. But I mean, all the other stuff I've ever looked into now, if I have to put it together, I would say they probably, if they aren't some kind of interdimensional creature that could disappear, I would say they probably live underground in hidden cave systems, would be my best guess, because we think everything's this dense forest, but we have no idea. There could be caves. I mean, you hear of all these cave civilizations that they dug up like in Arizona and Nevada and California and stuff. But if up north where it's like not so dry, where it's just all desert or where it's all forest and stuff, especially the Pacific Northwest, yeah, why not just, think about all those caves buried in really deep forests. So that would be, if I had to like guess, that would be my best educated guess, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we spoke about it in the episode about it was just a chit chat that we had free flow. Was that? Oh, that was the last episode we did.
Oh yeah, the free flow, yeah, last week, right?
Yeah.
Oh
No, because last week we did a Brandon Bonanza
yes,
channel
go check
episode.
that out, everyone. It was an amazing conversation between Joe P, who's always on the show, and our good friend Jeff. And what's up, Robo Honky? Yeah, but go check that out. We put that in last week. That's right. So the last oversharing we did, we had just a free chit chat, kind of like this.
And we
We
brought
talked
up
about Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. So I talked about my thoughts about it. So if you want to hear about that, you can go back there. But Cody's been listening to a lot of I mean he always did, but now I'm around and I can hear him too. So I get to hear a lot of stories from different channels like the Sasquatch Chronicles, um, the Sasquatch Theory, and just other people that post stories like that. But mostly, I think Sasquatch Chronicles is the one that Cody listens to a lot, and just every story is so unique and different, and it just makes you wonder like what these creatures are when everyone experiences something different. And yet there's similarities, right? There's people who have them looking through their windows at night, when they live like
Yeah.
near a forest or whatever, because they're apparently curious and they'll just stare at you and look at you and look at what you're doing and stuff. So that's what, piqued my curiosity about what could they possibly be, because I was never really one to look into that. Like, I heard about those things, but like very, just like very like it wasn't like near me, like people didn't really talk about it around me, or so I would just hear things here and there, and it never piqued my interest enough. It wasn't part of my consciousness to think about that until recently. So my recent thing was, I wonder if the law of one even mentions what these creatures are, because wouldn't it be interesting to see what they have to say about it, right? Um, so I went to the page where you can search the Law of One transcripts, and wow, what I found was very, very interesting. And
Yeah.
that's what we wanted to share with you guys today. So
Yeah.
let's,
Uh, quickly before we do that, I was just gonna say Adam said the name of the show was Finding Bigfoot from 2011. Yes, thank you, Adam.
okay,
I remember that show.
Animal Planet.
And I also wanted to just give a quick shout out to the chat. We have Sarcastic Warlock in there now. And, we always say this is the best darn show on the internet, but maybe you can't prove that. But this is definitely the best darn chat on the internet. I mean, I feel like even if we wanted to try to start a cult, we couldn't, because the people in here are just like, it's so funny. It's like we got all the grumpy old men together in the same, like, that's all we're all just like curmudgeons, like, leave me alone. But we could all come together and watch the Brandon Bonanza show and everyone's fine. You know, it reminds me of I would hear back in the day there was certain comedians that only the comedians really like, so they never made it really to be famous. Like Dave Attell is one of them, and there's a few more, but they'd have late shows, and it would just be full of the best comedians. Like you'd see Jerry Seinfeld or like Louis C.K. in the audience. Like that's our show. We get the
That's funny.
all the legends come to hang out and overshare. So shout out to you guys. This is great.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for being here. 11
Yeah, we're not
people.
for mass consumption. That's definitely us. We're the esoteric show.
Brandon, did you want to mention
I'm
something
not
about?
grumpy. I just have a highly developed sense of irritation. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to cut you
Yes,
off.
Adam.
Oh, and also I don't know if you watched that Dune video, probably not, but it was a parody, and the
Yeah,
funniest name they had the Bong Jabbar instead of the Gun
that was
Jabbar, the
funny.
Bong
That was very
Jabbar. Yeah.
silly.
All right. I just wanted to share that with our audience. But go
I'll
ahead with
give you I'll give you my bong jabar. Was that what he said?
the Bong Jabbar. I mean, you could have said Gom Jabong too, I guess. Gom Jabong. But I don't know. Anywho.
Yeah, that was funny. But speaking of you wanted to bring up people who um like quote kill in the name of other
Oh
people.
yeah. Okay. So I'll just share my funny idea with you guys while we're gonna use the Bigfoot material as like bait. We're gonna make you wait for it. I'm just kidding. I'm just gonna know that
I
Bigfoot.
didn't mean for it to be that way,
No,
but
I know, no. I'm just messing with the audience. Our fans, our friends, really. What I'm saying is I came up with this concept yesterday, and it's pretty cool. I want to share. I think I shared it with a few people who were in the chat, but it's this idea of people in their lifetime. It kind of has to do with things like, podcasts and stuff, but people who get famous and are known for things in their life, I noticed this crazy pattern where people who do the best things, like think of this, Jesus Christ, right? Jesus Christ was supposed to be the best avatar, best man, whatever,
darn
ever.
Avatar,
Best darn avatar ever, just like our show. And he never hurt a fly, like he only got mad once.
non-violence. He preached turning the other cheek.
Yeah, he only got mad like once in a temple, and everybody knows about it. See, that's what happens, man. Everyone knows about it. You get mad once, and you're 33 in the third years. So now think about it, though, of all the people who have been killed in the name of Jesus, though, right? Think about how high that toll is, and somebody who has been demonized in history. I would say the number one person, maybe Genghis Khan or Hitler. These two guys have are looked down pretty bad. Maybe not Genghis Khan so much because it was so long
Aleister
ago.
Crowley.
Oh, Aleister Crowley. There you go. Right. Aleister Crowley and Hitler. We could take those two names. Like if you just walked into a room and was like, Aleister Crowley and Adolf Hitler, am I right? People would just like throw their shit at you. So, but the funny thing is, I don't know anybody who's ever been killed in the name of Hitler, like, after his life or Aleister Crowley. Now, maybe there were some people in a weird sacrifice or who
Some
knows,
rogue
group of
person.
like neo-Nazis or whatever that like I don't know, maybe they hurt like in that movie. Okay, whatever. But there's no way that they're getting the numbers that Jesus racks up those numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like every few years we're like, don't we got to go kill some infidels in the name of our freedom and Jesus Christ? And even George Washington, the same thing. He's this great guy, he cut down a cherry tree. It was the worst thing he ever did, allegedly, that we're taught. But all these people are killed in his name, in the name of freedom. People thanking me for my service because I was in the military, and there like, thank you, owe our freedom to you. And I'm like, great, so now we're allowed to go kill all these people in his name. So I just thought that it was a pretty funny, interesting concept, something to think about now if you want to be remembered down the road. I'm not telling you to go out and commit like a genocide or be brutal or whatever, but maybe people like Aleister Crowley knew this, and so that's why they had the mystique around them of their life. Maybe they didn't want to be worshipped. So that's all I'm saying. Maybe P. Diddy just didn't want to be worshipped. Maybe he didn't do all these terrible things. He just was like, I'm going to set myself up It's been long enough since I had a hit record. That's the other thing, I'm not paying attention really to any of this P. Diddy stuff or whatever, but I think about it now. I'm like, where the hell were they in 1995? Like you're arresting him 30 years later. Like, you know, uh, it's really funny. And the last thing I'll say on this is my friend sent me a video of T-Pain and he was like in a podcast, and now T-Pain is the guy who, song Apple Bottom Jeans, Boots with the Fur. No, that's Flow Rider. But the other guy in the song is T-Pain. He does auto tunes all the time and he's on like everyone's record. And he was on there and he was like, man, how come everybody, he's like, every time I do a record with somebody, they fuck up. He's like, I did a record with R. Kelly and then he got fucked up. He's like, or he fucked up. And he said, then he's like, I did a record with Tory Lanez. And I didn't even, because I know nothing about all this, but apparently the rapper Tory Lanez shot another rapper, female rapper, Megan Thee Stallion, who I've heard of before because people ask me for requests. But I wish I knew that they shot each other. So next time somebody, if somebody asked me for a request, I'm like, that lady. But I guess he was shooting at her feet. Like she got out of the car, was walking away from him, and he said something, and she turned around. This is her story. I had to look it up. I'm like, what the fuck? And so she turned around, and he's in the car pointing a gun at her. And she's like, what the hell? And he starts shooting at her feet and telling her to dance. And that's what happened. He shot her feet, which is terrible, but that's like, really? Dance? Like this guy's, what are you fucking Wild Bill Hickok? Like what's going on? Anyway, so I hope you guys enjoy my theory. Just remember, no need for anyone named Pete or Diddy. Yeah, it's T-Pain brings the Deegan energy. Yeah, he totally does. It was funny too. He was just sipping
Degen.
his yak. He's on the podcast. Degen, there we go, degenerate. Sipping his yak, just laughing. But he had these giant, like probably platinum chains on. I'm just like, what? Why are you even worried, guy? Like, as they say in Rick and Morty, what are you worried about? Just buy fake doors. What are you worried? It's enough of my rant. It's just fun
So,
because the hip hop is
yeah,
kind of collapsing, and I've spent a lot of my life kind of defending hip hop when I was younger because I was one of the first white kids to really get into hip hop, kind of in my area. So it's funny now that it's like they're all just. I'm sure they're not all terrible though. It's like anything else, right?
mhm.
Okay,
Welcome warning, Skydome.
what's up?
So, without further ado, shall I open up the law of one?
Let's do it.
All right, I will share my screen.
I'm excited.
All right,
It's
let's
so
see.
crazy to me that so you had no hint that this was in there, right? You're just like, let me check and see for the heck of
No,
it.
I had no idea.
So much material, that's I love it. That's what we
No
bring here
idea.
in the Oversharing show. I'm telling you, things that nobody else thinks about.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Well, we will start here. Uh, please tell me if this looks okay on the screen.
Yeah, it looks good.
I can't yet see it in our live, but yeah. So I looked it up, and this is one of the first sessions where it comes up, the topic. So the questioner says the first entities on this planet, what was their origin? Where were they before they were on this planet? Now, remember that this was January 27, 1981. All right. This is the ninth ever session that they have.
I was 4.
Wow.
You know what? Maybe we should back out of this for just a second. We'll tease people some more. We'll just explain really quick what the law of one is very briefly. So the law of one is channeled work. We've talked about it before. You can go look it up or whatever. But this lady and a few guys got together and channeled this entity named Ra over several different periods of channeling. And they had a questioner who would ask the person the question who was channeling. And Ra says that he's how does he put it? A multi
Uh,
um,
it's like I
complex.
forget the word, but I would say like a complex consciousness or like a collective consciousness of sorts.
Yeah, exactly. And basically describes because they want to know, how this what we're in, what are we in? And basically Ra says that we are consciousness and we're trying to evolve. There's different densities of consciousness. Right now we're in the third density. Minerals and rocks kind of inhabit the first. The second is like plants and animals, and then humans, and then there's things that go above that. So that's the context that they're asking these questions. And another really little caveat too, they talk about like planets and solar systems and space and like planets that used to be. And Ra says that Ra is part of this other, it's like a graduating class. Right now we're in the class of,
Three. We're in third grade.
we're in that now. So we all move up or whatever. We're all supposed to move up at the same time, or maybe a group of us does. Now this is just what the law of one says, everyone. This isn't what we believe. Now we like to look at things maybe allegorically, because we know when people channel, it's not always exactly the truth. It's the truth as they see it. And even Ra says that he can't kind of, we say like woke rape, like he can't tell people what
Exactly.
they don't already know, right? You don't want to blow
Mhm.
anyone's mind or whatever. So
Like if he says planet, solar system, galaxy, he's using the terminology that these people are familiar with to
exactly.
explain something to them that may, it may be something different. So just
It's
keep that
definitely
in mind
based on a
too.
heliocentric model. Now, if you don't believe in a heliocentric model, you could still, now you could just throw it all away if you want. You could say this is garbage, or you could say, hey, maybe there still is some truth here. And that's what I believe, because I mean, I really don't know what is up above us. I feel like it's has to do more with the internal world, as above, so below, all that kind of stuff. So, maybe there are kind of like planets or consciousnesses or whatever out there. I certainly don't believe the mainstream story. So, but anyway, I just wanted to give that little caveat. And we all know that oversharing, none of that matters, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We're just we're exploring, we're seeing what other content says because it's interesting. So is that okay to move on? We ready
Yeah,
to
yeah.
move
Let's
on?
go. Yep. I was just looking at the chat. Yes, let's move on.
Okay. All right. I need to share the screen again. All right. So I need to move this little guy here out of the way. Okay. So it says, the first people, where did they come from? How did they evolve? Raw, this complex, or, you know, whatever we call them, complex
Entity.
consciousness, collective consciousness. That's at a different density than we are. Says, I am Ra. You speak of third density experience. That means what we're experiencing right now. The first of those to come here were brought from another planet in your solar system called by you the red planet, Mars. This planet's environment became inhospitable to third density beings. The first entities, therefore, were of this race, as you may call it, manipulated somewhat by those who were guardians at the time. Then the questioner asks, what race is that, and how did they get from Mars to here? Ra says, I am Ra. The race is a combination of the mind, body, spirit complexes of those of your so called red planet and a careful series of genetical adjustments made by the guardians of that time. Now, the mind, body, spirit complex, that's what Ra calls us human, quote, human beings. We are a mind, body, spirit complex. We're like, that's what he calls humans, or I should say, that's what they, Ra, calls humans. All right, so he follows on with these entities arrived or were preserved for the experience upon your sphere by a type of birthing which is non reproductive. Now that sounds interesting, but consists of preparing genetic material for the incarnation of the mind body spirit complexes of those entities from the red planet. Then the questioner asks, then I'm assuming what you're saying is that the Guardians transferred the race here after the race had died from the physical as we know it on Mars. Is that correct? Ra says, I am Ra. This is correct. The guardians, or sorry, the questioner says, the guardians obviously were acting with an understanding of the law of one in doing this. Can you explain the application of the law of one in this process? Ra says, I am Ra. The law of one was named by these guardians as the bringing of the wisdom of the guardians in contact with the entities from the red planet, thus melding the social memory complex of the guardian race and the red planet race. It, however, took an increasing amount of distortion into the application of the law of one from the viewpoint of other guardians. And it is from this beginning action that the quarantine of this planet was instituted, for it was felt that the free will of those of the red planet had been abridged. I'm just going to stop right there real quick because we can talk about the free will thing. Again, there are these complex consciousness, these collective consciousness that are of a positive polarity. They sometimes will come, like according to Ra, they will come and help us when we have questions, and we can seek them by channeling, right? And that's how Ra spoke to us. So when they do this, though, there is this free will that they really do their best not to break. So that's why we say they don't, they use the terminology that we're familiar with and the kind of concepts that we're familiar with to explain things, but it may not be exactly like that. Just because they speak like of solar systems and galaxy and stuff, it like we have to like use our minds out of the box, so to speak, to kind of think of, oh, it could be some other way. Because can you imagine, we don't know, like we talk about this in the Tao all the time, but when we talk about the Tao, um like you can't explain God, you can't explain uh how we live this realm, like what, like we don't know everything. So um we're we're just curious, we're questioning, we're speculating, and that's okay. Any comments, Brandon?
No, I think that was you wrapped up pretty good. I guess I could just say that I look at it more allegorically. That's kind of how we look at it, right? Like an allegorical sense of how this information or what truths that you might find in there fit in your own belief system. You know, that's what we're doing here. We're trying to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
We'll get into the Bigfoot.
And
It's
I would say there's nothing wrong with speculating and like using this material to kind of get more, or just have more ideas about what it could possibly be, because in the grand scheme of things, um it doesn't like matter if we think it's one way or another. Like when we depart from this realm, maybe we'll find out more then. It's like it doesn't matter, like we're just looking into stuff. So for anyone who is contentious or trying to, you know, you know
exactly.
what I mean.
Zeralath said the channeler lost his mind not long after the event. Is that true? I thought it was a
Where
woman. Wasn't it? A woman?
where's that at?
Zeralath. He said that the person who channeled it lost their mind not too long after this. They kind of went crazy.
Oh, her name is Carla Ruckert. I don't know. I didn't look into that. But can you imagine being a channel for something like that? And if you're not, I mean, if you're not spiritually ready, it could affect you.
Burn out the
Um,
circuits.
yeah, and something that you might notice when if you're reading the Law of One is everything has to be in a certain way for this channel to happen. So she has to be comfortable. She has to have enough energy, enough sleep, having eaten well, you know what I mean? Because this takes a lot of energy. to channel this. And so sometimes the questioner will ask, what can we do to make to make
Instrument.
the instrument, thank you, because I forgot what they call it, the instrument more comfortable. And then sometimes Raw will say, well, you can do this, you can adjust this, but then sometimes they'll say, this will be the last question, because they know that there's almost no more energy left for for them to answer another, lots more questions. So you'll see that towards the end of some of these sessions where that happens. So I'll go back. Is that okay?
Sarcastic said she broke the law of one by being two. And then Adam said that Rooker continued her work as a spiritual teacher and healer after the Raw sessions concluded, although she did face personal challenges later in life. All
Oh,
right.
okay. Yeah, he went and looked it up. So thank you, Adam. So, all right, I will keep reading a little bit. And I mean, we can comment on what we've read so far if there's anything you want to say, but I can keep
Well,
reading too.
it does kind of remind me of what you hear in a lot of the what is it, like the Anunnaki kind of story, like they portrayed in that Alien movie, the Aliens, the newer one, the Prometheus movie. It's has that kind of flavor. Like there's a master race and like normal people on Mars, and then they mess with their DNA kind of thing, you know? So maybe that story is some kind of allegory. Maybe it wasn't a material matter that was messed with. Maybe it was like a some kind of energy or spiritual things that happened, or who freaking knows, right? But it
Yeah.
seems like the special ones here, where people are always talking about like the quarantine and like this realm is like always blocked off from the other ones or something like that, So I guess we got the good one, everybody. We got the one with we got the rap album with the swear words in it. Yes, we got.
That's funny. Oh my Lord. Um, yeah, and also like, you know, could it be that, I mean, there are other entities like us who incarnate in other realms. We don't know if there are other realms. They may be described as quote planets, but does it really matter? I mean, we live in the freaking mind of God. Does it matter what they are? You know what I mean?
Yeah, they could be portals that we see. We think that they're planets, but you know how you've seen those memes, or you look at like Mars in a telescope or whatever it is. I
Mm.
mean, I've seen myself with my own eyes, seen Saturn in a telescope, and it does not look like. I thought I was looking at like I don't know, just like a cutout, like a little cardboard cutout, but it was just bright and white instead of, so I was like, what the heck is that? And then a lot you look at and they look like energy and things.
Yes.
But
Like
this
little
clearly
balls
just
of
looked like a
plasma
symbol in the
energy or
sky.
something.
Yeah, yeah, like plasma energy. So some of the other planets, who knows? Maybe they are portals or realms or portals to other realms.
Yeah.
We
And
have no idea.
so when someone channels an entity or a collective consciousness, they're just describing it the way we might be able to understand it, right?
Yep.
And they're not going to infringe upon our free will and say, no, you're retarded, you're wrong. It's not like that. It's a portal, it's this, it's that. They're just going to say it's a planet and there's people, there's beings that live on it, right? They're just going to that's how they're going to describe it because that's how you think about it, right?
Yeah, and that would be great if Roth called somebody retarded. That would be amazing. It's freaking retarded. The other thing I like about this Law of One stuff, he's always like, "I am Ra." It reminds me of Simon Says, So like one time, if he says something that he doesn't say "I am Ra," I'm like, wait, that's not really. That's a lie.
There are times when he doesn't start with I am Ra. It's funny. Like we'll see it here in a second.
Maybe.
Shall I go on?
Yes, please do.
All right. Let's see. All right, so we left off here. So the questioner says, were the entities of the red planet following the law of one prior to leaving the red planet? I'm just gonna stop it real quick. I don't know what they mean by that. I think what they are talking about is were they doing the whole polarity thing where they were choosing to polarize negative by service to self, or whether they were choosing to polarize positive by service to others. That's what I'm guessing that means. I don't really know. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I just kind of had an idea pop into my mind that I think kind of expanded my worldview a little bit because I believe that like I kind of think these resets, if resets do happen here, I'm pretty sure they do, you know. And if they do happen, I'm convinced it's well, my working model anyway, you know, give me evidence, but and I'll change it. But right now I feel like the way it works is we're here to expand our consciousness, right? Rise or you know, we're here to polarize. In the words of the law one, we're here to polarize either negative or positive. And if you want to polarize positive, it's 50% or more. Negative, you have to be 95% negative, right? To go up the negative chain. So with that in mind, I believe these resets happen because so many people get stuck in maybe materialism, right? Is a good one. They get stuck and they don't want to expand or polarize their consciousness. They're just safely in the middle of this game, right? So before I was thinking these resets happen because, you know, and we've talked about this before, Sharon, because people aren't polarizing or whatever, and they're just engaged in escapism. And then sometimes a reset has to come along to wipe people out and reset it. So then people have to start from the bottom. Um, and come back up. And then if you look at the work of like Jason from Archaics, his whole thing is these resets are just meant for the people who are the controllers, right? The ones that aren't living in accordance with the natural law, we'll say, or the golden rule. Now, so I was always thinking that these things happen because people aren't, uh, like I said, polarizing to the positive, but they also aren't polarizing negative. So it's kind of like the universe is saying, listen, you either have to polarize positive or you have to be really negative. So these people are negative, but they're not negative enough to
Quite
go up.
negative
Right?
enough. They're
They're just
somewhere between 94 and
50.
51, Ren 50, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
like 50
negative.
to 94.
And it's like the universe is like, come on, man, do it. It's like they're getting mad that they're getting lazy and complacent, even in their quest to polarize negatively. That's so funny, right? So that's why it's okay if you're going to be bad, I guess. If you're going to be bad, just do it, right? Do it fully. I'm not telling you you should, but if you are going to be one of these people who polarizes negatively, and I'm sure it's a really small amount. I mean, I've even said before, I think it's like one person. You could have one person in the world who's the one who's trying to negatively polarize, and he could be like the Emperor in Darth Vader. I mean, the Emperor in Star Wars, in the Emperor in the Star Wars universe, and then he has one apprentice like Darth Vader who's out there like, you know, George Soros or somebody, right? Um, yeah, but that's I don't know. I just thought that kind of blew my mind. That's why I feel like these resets happen, and you know, it's like, come on, man, either do it or do it. You know,
Yeah. Do it till you're done.
that's right.
Yeah. Do you think it would be beneficial if we I feel like we're going to get off topic. Maybe we
Hey,
can
Spoons.
do it another time, but we can review a little bit of the law of one fundamentals. Um
Well, I
but
think we should let's go a little bit more of what we've been reading, and
yeah,
then if we have any questions or whatever, but we totally could do a recap too in the long one. I want to get to the good stuff though.
sweet. Yeah, yeah. I know. Okay, here we go. Um where did I stop?
Spoons, you are right. Been listening and loving. So many cool folks are here. Yeah, so many cool folks. So many of us in here have met each other too, which is cooler. Ooh, 16, 17 viewers so far. Oh, awesome.
Okay. Let's see. Did we read all of this? Where did we read? Oh, were they following the law of one? Okay.
Yep.
Ross says the entities of the red planet were attempting to learn the laws of love, which form one of the primal distortions of the law of one. However, the tendencies of these people towards bellicose actions, I think those are like
Warlike.
when you're warlike. Yeah.
I remember that from vocab back.
Nice.
Yeah. Bellicose and belligerent. It's pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Caused such difficulties, excuse me, in the atmospheric environment of their planet that it became inhospitable for third density experience before the end of its cycle. So it sounds to me here like they were almost getting ready to experience third density, but then things in the environment became inhospitable because of like warlike actions, which I don't know if that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I
Maybe
think it was third. They were third density, but I think
they were they
continue
couldn't
in
finish
war.
third density.
Yeah, yeah. There you
Yeah,
go.
because they started warring. Okay. Well, Mars is the war planet, right? Thus, the red planet entities were unharvested and continued in your illusion to attempt to learn the law of love. Okay, yeah, that makes sense because the law of love is the fourth density, is the green ray, like trying to use your heart chakra or trying to get to the place where you're using your heart chakra. Um, So the questioner asks, how long ago did this transfer occur from the red planet to Earth? And Ra says, I am Ra. In your time, this transfer occurred approximately 75,000 years ago. Questioner says, 75,000 years ago? And Ra says, I am Ra. This is approximately correct.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
love that. I love that because he's not even being exact. He's like, it's approximately correct. Um, were there any questioner says, were there any entities of this form that I am now, two arms, two legs on this planet before this transfer occurred? Ra says, I am Ra. There have been visitors to your sphere at various times for the last 4 million of your years, speaking approximately. These visitors do not affect, and effect means to bring change, right? I think that's what that means. The cycling, I don't know if it means affect with an A or an E. I don't know if that's a typo.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
These visitors do not affect the cycling of the planetary sphere. It was not third density in its environment until the time previously mentioned. Questioner says, then there were second density entities prior to approximately 75,000 years ago. What type of entities were these? Ross says, the second density is the density of the higher plant life and animal life, which exists without the upward drive towards the infinite. So, second density is like we were saying, the animals and the plants, and they haven't reached to a place where they're self aware like we are humans in third density. So, they're still 2D beings. The second density being, these second density beings are of an octave of consciousness, just as you find various orientations of consciousness among the conscious entities of your vibration. Now, what I think he means by this is we've talked about how each level of each density has, like, I guess maybe they're called octaves, but has like fractalizations of that, right? So you could be like at the lower level of third density, or you could be at the higher level of third density, like almost reaching fourth density. So it says these second density beings um are of an octave of consciousness, just as you find various orientations of consciousness among the conscious entities of your. I think he means that they're at like the highest octave of second density. So they're almost about to reach third density. And I'm thinking he's talking about Bigfoot. So here we go. Questioner says, did any of these second density entities have shapes like ours? Two arms, two legs, head, and walk upright on 2 feet. And Ra says, I am Ra. The two higher of the sub vibrational levels of second density beings had the configuration of the biped, as you mentioned. So there you go. There's the sub vibrational levels of the second density. And then the two highest ones did contain beings that were that way. However, the erectile movement which you experience was not totally affected in these beings who were tending toward the leaning forward, barely leaving the quadrupedal position. Now, there are people here who may be like, oh, I don't believe in evolution. Um, who knows? Like, we don't really know, right?
Well, this is more also of a consciousness thing. So, I mean, you could just look at we're just vehicles for the consciousness, right? So men and women or humans or whatever, there might always be some kind of thing like us that has to experience their density, and then always some kind of animal. It doesn't mean that the monkey turned into the human, you know?
Right. Good call. So, questioner asks, where did these beings come from? Were they a product of evolution as it is understood by, there you go, there's the question, by our
Uh,
scientists? Were they evolved from the original material of the earth that you speak of? And Ra says, I am Ra, this is correct. So, they're not woke raping you. They're like, yes, evolution.
sure.
Um, questioner says, do these beings then evolve from second density to third density? And Ross says, I am Ra, this is correct, although no guarantee can be made of the number of cycles it will take an entity to learn the lessons of consciousness, of self, which are the prerequisite for transition to third density. So there you go. Like, it's interesting.
That
Like,
reminds me
we
a lot.
don't,
If you want to come off for just one second,
yeah, yeah.
that reminds me a lot of what I've heard people like Michael Tessarion talk about, and now the Archivist is analog. His YouTube channel, check that out. He's going to be doing a whole series about this. I just watched his or listened to his most recent show, and this idea of the bicameral mind that we have is, Michael Tessarion said he thinks that, maybe it was a comet that struck the Earth so many thousands of years ago, and the people who survived just have this trauma, and it's kind of just their mind split. So whereas before they might have spoken telepathically, or they heard the voice of God internally, and then once this event happened they didn't hear the voice of God internally. So now people have this, it's kind of like original sin almost, right? You're born with this I forget the term, when abandonment. You're born with these cosmic abandonment issues, right? And then
Wounds. Yeah.
all these wounds happen to us as we're children too, that add to that. So I think that's kind of what they're talking about. This is where our uh, vehicles gain their consciousness the way that we have it now. It's also pointed to kind of like the Tower of Babel is another story where this could have happened. It could have been the Tower of Babel story, could be trying to symbolize this moment in human consciousness also. So,
Yeah. Mm,
makes you
good
think.
thoughts.
Maybe
All
that's
right.
why Bigfoot, he's just trying to speak to us telepathically, and he's getting pissed because he's like, hey, do you have any Grey Poupon? And the hunter's sitting there like, it's Bigfoot. And he's like, yeah, but come on, dude. You didn't hear me? I need some Grey. This is an elaborate Grey Poupon commercial. All right. Yeah.
Shall we
Back to it. Yeah.
shall we go back?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So questioner says, is there any particular race of people on our planet now, who were incarnated here from second density? I am Ra. There are no second density consciousness complexes here on your sphere at this time. However, there are two races which use the second density form. One is the entities of the planetary sphere you call Maldek. These entities are working their understanding complexes through a series of what you would call karmic restitutions. They dwell within your deeper underground passageways and are known to you as, quote, Bigfoot. That's the interesting part. The other race is that being offered a dwelling in this density by guardians who wish to give the mind, body, spirit complexes of those who are of this density at this time appropriately engineered physical vehicles, as you would call these chemical complexes, in the event that there is what you would call a nuclear war. So that's kind of interesting because we've talked about how like there have been fish falls, and just like if the realm needs something, and something is going extinct or whatever, that the realm will bring it to existence. So I guess there are these things as called guardians who make sure that these things if there is an extinction of some sort, that there are things ready for uh repopulation of whatever that is. Um, are you checking the chat?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any comments so far?
No, I love this so far. I mean, that the Maldeck thing is so that I think they explain it,
I
but that's go ahead.
Yeah, I can pull up a Maldek thing and deep dive on that if you want.
No, oh, I was just gonna say that it was supposed to be a planet allegedly that was destroyed, and now it's the asteroid belt that's between what Mars and Saturn or something. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'll show the screen in 1 second.
And Sarcastic says he's talking about this was my first split when I was reading Law of One. War and conflict is the root of existence, in my view. Without conflict, there is no separation and therefore no individuation. Ah, mm, that does make sense. So maybe that's what happens. People just get too lazy. Maybe they got to have a little war, but not like a total war that destroys their realm, which I don't even know if that's possible. But when they just sit around watching TV all day, that's when it's like, all right, here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if we don't have, like we've talked about it before, if we don't have like
Resistance,
the
right?
the resistance, we can't understand when there isn't resistance. It's like
Or a
we
conflict.
we
Yeah.
need yeah, we need both. It's a cycle. It's all part of the plan. But I'm gonna share this Maldek thing because just so that people can see what this says. I found this on a website called Exopedia. Okay, so it says Maldek. Maldek is the name given to a planet of the solar system that was located between Mars and Jupiter, but which no longer exists. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter are the remains of Maldek. The name Maldek is used in theosophical writings as well as the raw material, which is the Law of One, as in Edgar Casey's readings, which those are interesting. I've been looking into Edgar Casey and reading a biography of his lately. So
They're
it
sync,
says
by the way. Our friend who talks about the Phoenix event, we don't watch Archaics as much anymore. Once in a while, we might check something out. But I was checking out something he did, and he mentioned Edgar Casey. It's like, wow,
nice.
sync, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so it says exploded planet hypothesis. Many people, including many astronomers, believe the asteroid belt consists of the remains of an exploded planet. The theory nowadays often referred to as the disruption theory was first formulated about 2 centuries ago. The name of the planet that would have existed is usually referred to as Phaeton. I guess that was the different name for Maldek. There are different views as to how the planet ended. They include that one, it veered too close to Jupiter and was torn apart by the gas giant's powerful gravity. Number two, it was struck by another large celestial body. Number three, it was destroyed by a hypothetical brown dwarf, the companion star to the sun, known as Nemesis. Now that I was like, Archaics talks about the Nemesis X, so that kind of stood out to me. I was like, what is that? And then number four, it was shattered by some internal catastrophe. Mainstream astronomy considers it more likely the
Climate
asteroid belt
change. Sorry.
consists
They
of
didn't
the
stop their
remains.
cows from farting. See what happens in their
Oh
planet.
my.
You gotta stop those cow farts or the planet explodes. See what happens to Maldeck? Sorry.
Uh,
Never forget.
uh,
I'm gonna get a shirt.
oh my lord.
Go ahead.
Mainstream astronomy considers it more likely that the asteroid belt consists of the remains of protoplanetary disk, whatever that means. Destruction. In the theories that Maldek was inhabited and destroyed, there are mainly three opposing views as to how this happened: a war with Mars, natural causes, or self destructed with technology. Now that's interesting.
Yeah, cow farts.
Self destruction, the raw material, and theosophical writing. The short version is that Maldek at some stage was inhabited by a humanoid species. Just like the apex planet, Maldek was destroyed by nuclear war. The longer version is that there was a cosmic war going on in space. Humanoids who were fleeing the war colonized Maldek about 8 million years ago. These would have been mainly of Syrian, Vegan, Lyrian origins.
They're
They're
vegan.
all not vegan. That's hilarious. There also was an indigenous primate like population, which fits the characteristic of what we often call Bigfoot in the US, Ogo in Africa, or the Yeti in the Himalayas. About 4 million years ago, other planets in our solar system, i.e., Earth, Mars, Venus, also started being colonized. Then, anywhere between 1 million to 7 million years ago, a war started on Maldek. Some of the inhabitants fled to Earth, Mars, and Venus, taking with them some of the Bigfoot creatures. The war ended in nuclear disaster in which the planet was blown up. Everybody who was still on the planet was killed. Effectively, the catastrophe also called Mars to start losing its atmosphere. About 500,000 years ago, former inhabitants of Maldek would have started reincarnating on Earth. And together with the descendants of colonists that were still here, they slowly started the civilizations that would become Lemuria and Atlantis. Now that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And history would repeat itself.
And
The
what is
war in
this?
heaven.
I'm sorry.
Hmm?
What website is this or book?
Exopedia.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. So this last bit says the
Interesting.
war in heaven. The Far Sight Institute did a series of remote viewing sessions on the history of the solar system. In those sessions, they saw a nuclear war between Mars and Maldek. In this narrative, Mars was inhabited by humanoids while Maldek was inhabited by a reptilian race.
Oh, the Jays. Plot
they
thickens.
they incarnated here too. Just kidding. Maldek
They incarnated in our chat. No, I'm just kidding.
Maldek would have started invading Mars to extract resources. When Mars started losing the war, they used nuclear weapons to destroy Maldek. I don't know what they mean by nuclear weapons, but okay. Natural causes. Now this is from Sitchin, whom Archaics, I would say, does not like. Or I guess he doesn't like his theories. Some of his theories. According to Sitchin, Sumerian mythology mentions the existence of a former planet between Mars and Jupiter that was called Tiamat. When Tiamat collided with the satellites or the moons of Marduk, a foreign celestial body, Tiamat, was half destroyed. The surviving half was to become Earth. The destroyed half formed the asteroid belt. Marduk got an orbit around the sun and would be the 12th planet. That
Mm.
is the Maldek reading from Exopedia,
That's the
which
origin of the Jays, everybody. Interesting,
so
interesting stuff. Yeah.
yeah, it's again, it's you don't have to believe everything that's written there, but it just provides some maybe some thoughts, some context, and
Yeah, a little bit of context, right? And then you could just fit it into your kind of own worldview, I guess.
yeah,
Here.
exactly. Um, all right. So I'm just gonna finish reading the
The law of one.
session from the
Yeah, there's more
session
Bigfoot
9.
stuff, right?
Hmm?
More Bigfoot stuff.
Yeah, I think if they keep talking. Okay, so questioner says I didn't understand what these vehicles or beings were for that were appropriate in the event of nuclear war. This is what we were talking about earlier. I am raw. These are beings which exist as instinctual second density beings which are being held in reserve to form what you would call a gene pool in case these body complexes are needed. These body complexes are greatly able to withstand the rigors of radiation, which the body complexes you now inhabit could not. Now, I don't know what that means because um, I like when we've been looking into the stuff that uh, Archaics talks about, our DNA is like kind of in reserve, right? For whatever might happen. So if there's parts that are like called quote junk DNA, um, they're not junk. They're just not being used at the moment because we're not giants and we don't need we're not in a place where we have that much oxygen and that much like in vapor canopy time frames where there was a lot more humidity in the air and all that stuff. So our bodies would be a lot different if that were the case. And so they would adapt. So I don't know what it means to hold bodies in reserve.
It
But hey,
sounds to me like they have these Bigfoot bodies in reserve in case we all nuke ourselves, which, most people that watch this show probably don't exactly follow the whole mainstream narrative with the nuke thing. But again, who knows what exactly this means? Think in the term of maybe consciousness, maybe not the physical, maybe it's something in the spiritual realm, the energy realm that we can't
mm,
quite understand. But he's trying to communicate this in a way these people will understand it, but it won't like blow their mind and ruin their whole scene. That
oh
because
yeah,
we have it because he says they have those bodies in reserve because they're more resistant to radiation. It could even be
yeah.
something with the sun. I don't know.
Yeah, no, when I was reading, I had the same exact thought as you. Was like, could they be relaying something more maybe esoteric or in a way that they kind of understand, but that has a deeper meaning, perhaps.
100%.
Let me just
I mean,
go
I think
back to
any channeled work has the possibility to have deeper meaning. People say that art is channeled or even music. Sometimes when people are writing music, it's channeled, and you will hear these lyrics, and you're like, whoa. Sometimes they mean a lot different things to other people than they do to some other people. So yeah, I mean, we're just looking in the terms of most people in the civilization believe in the heliocentric model, so
Mhm.
I think that's why most people wouldn't question it.
Yeah. So, all right. So the questioner says, where are these body complexes located? Ra says, I am Ra. These body complexes of the second race dwell in uninhabited deep forest. There are many in various places over the surface of your planet. Questioner says, are they Bigfoot type creatures? And Ra says, I am Ra. This is correct. Although we would not call these Bigfoot as they are scarce and are very able to escape detection. So he's talking about like three different kinds of creatures that are like Bigfoot like, but he said he wouldn't call these Bigfoot. So it's interesting. The first race is less able to be aware of proximity of other mind body spirit complexes, but these beings are very able to escape due to their technological understandings before their incarnations here. These entities of the glowing eyes are the are those most familiar to your peoples.
Now that sounds like some interdimensional travel kind of stuff right there, right? Because
Right.
it says before they incarnated, they learned these ways to escape detection or whatever. Hmm.
Right. Right. And when he's saying like these and this race, I don't know which he's referring to. Like, okay, draw me three pictures. This
Yeah,
is the
yeah.
first kind, this is the second kind, this is the third kind. These, or these. Which one is it?
Next time they channel Ra, we need Sharon in the room. So she's like, Ra, we need a little more context.
Can you
Ra,
give me
come
some pictures here? Give me a mental picture so I can draw it.
on. Exactly.
Make a chart, please.
Yeah. The Ra chart.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So yeah. So then he says, then there are two different type of Bigfoot, correct? And Ra says, I am Ra. This will be the final question. So there you hear
He's
him.
like, that's it. No more. No.
Yeah, because she's probably getting tired. Carla's probably energetically ready to be done. So Ra says, there are three types of Bigfoot. If you will accept that vibratory sound complex used for three such different races of mind, body, spirit complexes. The first two we have described. The third is a thought form. Okay. Wow. That is interesting. This of course is I'll read it because this is interesting. Questioner says, we plan to do a second session later today if the instrument is capable, and I'd like to ask, believe this is possible. And also if there's anything we can do to aid the instrument's comfort. Ra says, I am Ra. The instrument will require some adjustment of the tender portions of her body complex. The distortions are due to energy center blockage you would call pineal. So in her pineal gland. I leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one creator, Adonai. That is, when I read that the first time, I was like, wow, that's interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah. They're using Hebrew.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it says thought form. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's why nobody can see that one particular creature except for the whoever wants to see it.
Right. It's elusive, right? Because it said this one is very able to escape due to their technological understanding before their incarnations here. And but then he says these entities of the glowing eyes are the most familiar to your peoples. Now, the glowing eyes, are those the ones that are technologically
I
able
think that's
to?
what he's saying. Because
Okay.
normally that's the one where people like say they see like a Bigfoot looking through the window and stuff like that, right? Is when they see the
I don't
glowing
know.
eyes or in the forest.
They actually see a face. They don't see like
Oh,
necessarily eyes.
okay.
It's sometimes people will see like in the woods, they'll see glowing eyes maybe. Um I don't remember all the stories I've heard about the glowing eyes versions. So I'd have to look more into that.
Only we could get Bigfoot on the Over Sharon show. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Just get a Bigfoot suit.
Yeah.
Like you guys were all wrong. Just make up another crazy scenario. Is there any more?
Yeah. So the
Okay.
next one was the next day, I'm assuming, or the next session because it's number 10. So I will start from that portion. Oh no.
Imagine like getting all this together to channel Ra and then he starts talking about Bigfoot, you know.
All right. Here we go. I'm just waiting for the little screen to let me see. Let me zoom it a little bit. All right. This is from January 27th, 1981. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and light of the infinite creator. I communicate now. The questioner says, I think it would clarify things for us to go back to the time just before the transfer of souls from Maldek. See how the law of one operated with respect to this transfer and why this was necessary. What happened to Maldek or the people on Maldek to cause them to lose their planet? How long ago did this occur? Ra says, I am Ra. The peoples of Maldek had a civilization somewhat similar to that of the societal complex known to you as Atlantis, in that it gained much technological information and used it without care for the preservation of their sphere, following to a majority extent the complex of thought, ideas, and actions which you may associate with your so-called negative polarity of service or service to self. So, what this sounds like to me is that he's explaining what we experience here in this 3D realm that we experience. Maybe other realms don't experience the exact same thing because he's saying the actions which you may associate with your so-called negative polarity or service to self. So that's where I'm kind of confused because I thought the law of one was like the law of one for everything. Like this applied to all beings and all creatures living in different third densities and whatever. Right?
Oh yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense to you or what?
Yeah, it could be. Or it could just be like an over poorly written or typed or channeled, just meaning they just mean negative polarity. And he's saying which you
Maybe
may
he's just clarifying to them
yeah.
like it's about negative polarity. Yeah, I don't know.
One thing I did
So
want to say though is that he keeps saying sphere, and you know what else
yeah,
is a sphere? A toroidal field.
that is every time I read sphere when he was saying that, I had a mental picture of a toroidal field around something. So
And
that's
also planet, plane at, we've talked about this, everyone
yeah,
knows, but
French, right?
yeah.
Planet is like a small plane,
Yep.
a plane of existence. So here we go. This was, however, for the most part, couched in a sincere belief thought structure, which seemed to the perception of the mind body complexes of the sphere to be positive and of service to others. So they were doing service to self, but they were like, oh no, we're doing service to others. I guess that's what they thought.
Yeah, they had it inverted. Sounds like what's
Yeah.
going on here.
Yeah. Yeah. Good call. The devastation that wrecked their biosphere and caused its disintegration resulted from what you call war. The escalation went to the furthest extent of the technology the social complex had at its disposal in the space time present of the then time. This time was approximately 705,000. So 705,000 of your years ago. The cycles had begun much, much earlier upon the sphere due to its relative ability to support the first dimensional life forms at an earlier point in the space time continuum of your solar system. These entities were so traumatized by this occurrence that they were in what you may call a social complex knot or tangle of fear. Some of your time passed, no one could reach them, no beings could aid them. Approximately 600,000 of your years ago, the then existing members of the Confederation were able to deploy a social memory complex and untie the knot of fear. The entities were then able to recall that they were conscious. Wow, what like a total trauma, right? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
actually escape for just a minute because I want to say
Yeah.
not only do we talk so much about the importance of fear and not acting through fear, so that's a great symbol there, but also what I was thinking of was if this was how things worked with consciousness before, maybe these civilizations kept blowing themselves up. So then there was this protocol instituted, kind of like Archaics talks about with the Phoenix, right? So this way, every 148 years, something happens to where anyone that's exhibiting this kind of behavior just gets like dealt with and wiped out. Because I don't think you could destroy this realm, but what you could do possibly is if all the people in this realm, men and women, died, then it might collapse because then there's nobody
Egregore, thought
to
form.
continue the egregore, exactly, because I believe this realm is just created by the collective consciousness in our head. So maybe that's why they put the Bigfoots in here. So if we all
And
kill ourselves, there's still a
at
realm
least
because it exists in the mind of the Bigfoots.
that's whack. Oh my God.
The Bigfoots are here to just in case we get we just in
We
case
wipe
someone
ourselves
wants,
out.
like yeah somehow and again we don't go to the nuclear thing, but I mean who knows, maybe there is a way to kill all the people in here because we do kind of believe that just like similar to a fish fall, societies could just show up and they could disappear. But maybe if you're looking through the lens of like simulation theory, this simulation, right, even though I think it's a spiritual realm, so we'll say this realm, maybe there's edits and things that could be done to it, but if all the people in it die, then it just turns off and they got to like restart it all, make a new one, or who knows. But maybe it's easier to keep it going, and then you just add the people in, and then you take them out as you need them, as the lessons that they need. They incarnate where they need to, and if one civilization somewhere gets wiped out, they could just implant another one or whatever somewhere. But if everyone gets wiped out, the fail safe are the Bigfoots. That I don't think anybody has that theory.
I doubt that.
Thank you, Sharon, for putting that all together because it's just, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I mean, I figured we would make some kinds of connections if we read through some of this stuff.
Yeah. Or what do you guys think? You're following my idea in the chat, what I'm thinking. So they have the,
Adam says nice, Brandon. I
oh,
think
thank you.
I think
Adam.
he
Thank
gets it.
you. Yeah, Adam gets it.
Yeah. We have Cody Bassett who joined.
Oh, what's up,
Welcome.
Cody? Yeah. We had a few.
Sarah G. I
Yeah.
didn't
What's
see
up,
her.
Sarah?
Welcome. And she says infection of the mind fear. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. They needed to
Indeed.
pass the Bong Jabbar. That's what it was. See if you could successfully pass the Bong Jabbar, you just get this high, crazy intensity THC weed you have to smoke, and it just makes you go nuts. If you could survive that, then you're fine. Then you're a human. If not, then you're an animal. Bong
Yeah.
Jabbar. That's funny. We can continue, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. I was just checking the chat real quick.
Oh yeah.
All right. Where were we? Untie the knot of fear.
Yep.
The entities were then able to recall that they were conscious. This awareness brought them to the point upon what you would call the lower astral planes, where they could be nurtured until each mind body spirit complex was able finally to be healed of this trauma, to the extent that each entity was able to examine the distortions it had experienced in the previous life illusion complex. That's interesting. I wonder if that happens outside of a realm, like in between lifetimes.
Mm,
Like when someone, quote, dies in one lifetime and then is, you know, goes back to source sort of thing, right? Goes back to this astral area, this whatever you would call. I guess they would call it the lower astral planes. And it's like when I think of it as like when someone here in this realm passes away, they go to this place wherever this astral realm is, and depending on where they how they lived that life, they go to a place where they're either cared for, nurtured, restored and told, okay, what do you think you want to do next lifetime? You know, what lessons do you want to learn based on, the last lifetime and any previous lifetimes? And because in that astral plane, you remember all your lifetimes and you can decide what you want to do the following lifetime. And maybe that's where these beings or these entities were nurtured up until they were ready to incarnate again somewhere. That's what it sounds like to me, at least.
yeah, that makes sense. Maybe they just were fried, like the system shut off, like who knows? Like if you're talking about in the language of like simulation theory, right? Maybe there was some kind of something happened, the people inside screwed everything up, and then their consciousness were just tied in these knots of fear, which is like makes me also think of when you die, you should be really conscious of where your mind is when you're dying, your thoughts. Because I think if you die in a lot of fear and you don't accept it, that you might end up, who
Well, you'll
knows?
go to those lower astral planes
Yeah, yeah,
and you'll have to be nurtured back to a state of, okay, you're conscious. It's okay. You can go back. What are you going to do next lifetime?
yeah. You get put to the nursery. That's like the what's the
The
Christian,
nursery,
what do they call it in Christian, purgatory? Right.
purgatory. Yeah, exactly. Let me
Get to go hang out in purgatory with Bigfoot.
After this experience of learning, teaching, the group decision was to place upon itself a type of what you may call karma alleviation. For this purpose, they came into incarnation within your planetary sphere in that, in what were not acceptable human forms. I'm guessing this is Bigfoot. This then they have been experiencing until the distortions of destruction are replaced by distortions toward the desire for a less distorted vision of service to others. Since this was the conscious decision of the great majority of those beings in the Maldek experience, the transition to this planet began approximately 500,000 years ago. Let me zoom back out of your years ago, and the type of body complex available at the time was used. So, whatever body complex was around, however many that. So questioner says, was the body complex available at the time what we refer to as the ape type? And Ross says that is correct. So that's why perhaps Bigfoots look like apes, or
and
tend to be described as looking ape-like.
and maybe that's why evolution, the idea of evolution works for people, because they're looking at it as physical when we're looking at it as like a evolution of your consciousness. So it's possible that the consciousness that animates my body started as rock, right? And then it was plant,
Absolutely,
and then it was
absolutely.
animal, and then it was
A
Bigfoot.
plant,
And now
animal,
I'm still
whatever.
kind of Bigfoot. Look, I mean, look, come on, that's why this is the real
Oh
reveal,
my
guys. We found
God,
Bigfoot.
Jesus. Thank you.
It's the real reveal. What other show are you gonna see? Awesome flabberty doos. That's what I call feet now, everybody. What do you anyway? But yeah, I think that's then we're people, and then our consciousness raises, and then we're something else after that. in various stages in between. Maybe we come here as a somebody who's like mentally handicapped or something, and then you come back as someone who's retarded, which is a person who's not mentally handicapped, fully has all their cognitive functions, but is just a retard. You've met these people, and then you get to come back as Sharon or Brandon if you do really good one day. There goes my spiritual ego. No,
Splat.
flat.
No, yes, that's the law of one talks about. In fact, I came across it somewhere in here. I can't remember where, but the they were asking what it starts out as, like first density, and he says earth, air, water, fire. Like first density is earth, air, water, fire. So we are any one of those things. That's how we start out. So second density would be like the plant forms and the animals. And then of course we are third density. So
Yeah, so
we
be kind to rocks, everybody. Sorry, go ahead.
rocks and crystals.
Be kind.
Yes.
Be kind to rocks. Pet this one for you. Love it.
I have my little shungite
See
worry
if I've
stone
something
here,
better than
even though I
Sean.
don't worry. It's kind of cool.
Oh, here, I'll pull it up.
It's very soft.
This is a oversharing show. If you've been with us for a long time, you're gonna recognize this crystal.
Oh, you're gonna pull out your skull? What you got?
There it is,
Yes.
everybody. Remember this guy? Peach Moonstone.
He reminds me of an Edgar Allan Poe or something,
Yeah, he really
right?
does. Yeah.
Does he talk about the raven?
The
The
Raven. The Raven, yeah.
right? Yeah, ravens are cool. Um, but yeah, let me go back to
Enough showing off.
10, session 10. All right, so there you go. Was the body complex available at the time what we refer to as the ape type? That is correct. So the questioner says, and have any of the mold-like entities transformed now? Are they now still second density, or are they forming some third density planet now? Ross says the consciousness of these entities has always been third density. The alleviation mechanism was designed by the placement of this consciousness in second dimensional physical chemical complexes, which are not able to be dexterous or manipulative to the extent which is appropriate to the workings of third density distortions of the mind complex. Now I'm going to stop there because if I remember correctly, this I did not necessarily read, and I did try to search for it, so I might read up on it later. But I remember Aaron Abke talking about the reason for quote war, and it's because allegedly we developed these opposable thumbs, so we can grab things and hit people with them and make weapons and stuff.
Yeah.
And use weapons, right? So what it's saying here, let me just go back and read this. What it's saying here is that these Bigfoots, I guess, they're supposed to be third density beings, but they're kind of in an alleviation mechanism of second density or second dimensional physical chemical complexes, which I think that means maybe second density. So they're kind of in a faux second density. I mean, I think they still have opposable thumbs though, right? Because they
Yeah.
from tree knock and stuff. I don't know what this all means, but that's kind of what it made me think of as I read that. So I'll move on. Questioner says, well, have any of these entities moved on now, made a, shall we say, graduation at the end of a 75,000 year cycle and gotten out of a second density body into third density type bodies? Ra says, I am Ra. Many of these entities were able to remove the accumulation of what you call karma, thus being able to accept a third density cycle within a third density body. Most of those beings so succeeding have incarnated elsewhere in the creation for the succeeding cycle in third density. As this planet reached third density, some few of these entities became able to join the vibration of this sphere in the third density form. There remain a few who have not yet alleviated through the mind-body-spirit coordination of distortions the previous action taken by them. Therefore, they remain. So the ones that remain of these Bigfoots, I guess, well, at least some of them, because he says, are these the Bigfoot you spoke of? And he says, I am Ra. These are one type of Bigfoot. So at least one type of Bigfoot that we see out there never alleviated. They never made it past Brandon. They're the ones that are stuck between 50 and 94.
Oh yeah.
They're the ones that are
All right.
stuck. Interesting, huh? Because they didn't polarize all the way negative or like 51% plus positive. All right. So he says, then our present race, questioner says, then our present race is formed of a few who originally came from Maldek and quite a few who came from Mars. Are there entities here from other places? Ra says, I am Ra. There are entities experiencing, pardon me, experiencing your time and space continuum who have originated from many, many places, as you would call them, in the creation. For when there's a cycle change, those who must repeat then find a planetary sphere appropriate for this repetition. It is somewhat unusual for a planetary mind body spirit complex to contain those from many, many various loci, or is it loci or loci? Whatever. But this explains much, for you see, you are experiencing the third dimensional occurrence with a large number of those who must repeat the cycle. The orientation thus has been difficult to unify, even with the aid of many of your teach/learners. Wow, that's kind of interesting in itself.
We're in the we got stuck in the remedial class, right? And we're with all the people who had to repeat third
The
grade.
remedials.
Yeah, all the people they got held back. They couldn't go into fourth grade. They got held back in third grade.
Yeah,
That's funny.
we're in third grade with a lot of remedials. Maybe some of us are some of those.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Probably. I mean, I am almost a Bigfoot, so that would make sense.
Wow.
It's on my foot. See what you get here on the Oversharing show.
No, this is interesting. Okay.
Oh, that's
Um,
Incident Jones says, "What's the crystal's name?" If you want to share, if it has one, I'd say Edgar is that crystal's name. It's Edgar.
oh, okay. But Peach Moonstone, I think, is that what he meant?
Yeah, it is Peach Moonstone, but he asked if it has it. Oh, maybe
If
that's what
it
he meant.
has a
No,
name.
because up he goes, "What's his name, Brandon?"
Oh, okay.
Oh, and I put Edgar's skull's name, but he must have been typing as I typed. So it happens. Oh,
Edgar,
sorry. Yeah, don't
Edgar
worry.
Allan Poe or Edgar Casey?
I don't know. I guess it's up to the mind of whoever is pondering that.
Yeah. All right, let me keep reading here.
Edgar Jones.
All right. Questioner says, when Maldek was destroyed, did all people of Maldek have the problem, or were some advanced enough to transfer to other planets? Ra says, I am Ra. In the occurrence of planetary dissolution, none escaped, for this is an action which redounds to the social complex of the planetary complex itself. None escaped the knot or tangle. Questioner says, is there any danger of this happening to Earth at this time? Ra says, I am Ra. We feel this evaluation of your planetary mind body spirit complex's so called future may be less than harmless. We say only the conditions of mind exist for such development of technology and such deployment. It is the distortion of our vision understanding that the mind and spirit complexes of those of your people need orientation rather than the quote toys needing dismantlement. For are not all things that exist part of the creator? This is what I read that I was like, I mentioned it one recording episode that's coming out next week. But I was just like, yeah, isn't everything in here part of the creator? So why do we worry? Anyway, he says, therefore, freely to choose is your honor or duty. Anyway, do you have any comments on that, Brandon?
Well, I like what you said though, because they're basically telling them. Because I feel like the people who were channeling this, their biggest worry probably was dying in some kind of nuclear holocaust, right? So Ra's like, listen, I know you want to get rid of these nuclear weapons, but it doesn't. That's not the problem. The problem is the minds of these people, the limitations that's going on, that's holding them back, right? That's what you got to speak to, not trying to get rid of these nukes, all these bombs. And I mean, that really goes for any instrument of war, though. He's just saying, like, don't do it. I mean, what if you get rid of all your weapons and all your nukes, and just like in Family Guy, the next day you get invaded by like some kind of crazy aliens, and then you need all your guns. That happened in an episode of Family Guy. It was pretty funny.
That's funny. All right, let me share again. So questioner says, when a graduation occurs and an entity or entities move at the end of a cycle from one planet to another, by what means do they go from one planet to another? I love this answer, by the way. Ra says, I am Ra in the scheme of the creator. The first step of the mind, body, spirit, totality beingness is to place its mind, body, spirit complex distortion in the proper place of love or light. This is done to ensure proper healing of the complex and eventual attunement with the totality beingness complex. This takes a very variable length of your time space. After this is accomplished, the experience of the cycle is dissolved and filtered until only the distillation of distortions in its pure form remains. At this time, the harvested mind, body, spirit, totality beingness evaluates the density, needs, of its beingness and chooses the more appropriate new environment for either a repetition of the cycle or moving forward into the next cycle. This is the manner of the harvesting, guarded and watched over by many. Wow. So it totally explains like what I mentioned earlier, right? Is this, you go to this place of right, like healing or something. Let me read that again. Yeah, it's like you go to this place of healing where you distill all of those things that may be negative or bad things, and
Experiences.
until only the purity remains. And then you evaluate the next density that you need to go back to or go to next. And you choose a more appropriate new environment for the repetition of your cycle or a new cycle. Wow. That's so cool.
It's kind of like a way that the Christians would describe it as Judgment Day. You get judged,
Mhm.
but that's like anthropomorphizing thing. It's kind of like when there's thunder in the sky and you're like, oh, God's up there moving furniture or bowling. That's what that is.
Bowling.
It's just it's a
Thor's using his hammer.
yeah. Well, that might be real. I don't want to. Just kidding, Thor. We're cool with you. Don't worry. No, no, I hear you. Yeah. But that's what I was gonna say. But my favorite thing is the guy's like, yeah, how do they travel? He's like, hey Ra, how did they travel? And Ra's like, no, you got to stay here and do it till it's done. Don't worry about how you travel anywhere else. He's like, you got to do your work. He's like, damn it.
The next answer is lovely.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So he goes, when he's trying to repeat his question, when the entity is moved from one planet to the next, is he moved in thought or in a vehicle? He's like, clarifying, please. Ra says, I am Ra. The mind, body, spirit, totality beingness is one with the creator. There is no time space distortion. Therefore, it is a matter of thinking the proper locus in the infinite array of time spaces. That is what I loved when he answered that. I was like, duh. Like, we are all mind. All is mind. Why would you need a vehicle to travel? You just think it and you're there, right?
Yeah, yep. He just kind of blew his mind a little bit there, right?
Yeah.
It's great. I love it. Well, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just go back. All right, questioner says, while an entity is incarnate in this third density at this time, he may either learn without consciously knowing what he's doing, or he may learn after he's consciously aware. that he is learning in the ways of the law of one. The second way is it is possible for the entity to greatly accelerate his growth. Is it not correct? Ra says, I am Ra. This is correct. The questioner says, then, although many entities are not aware of this, what they really desire is to accelerate their growth, and it is their job to discover this while incarnate. Is it correct that they can accelerate their growth much more while incarnate in third density than in between incarnations of this density? I am Ra. This is correct. We shall attempt to speak upon this concept. Now, this is going a little bit further into not, not Bigfoot topics, but so I will see if anybody wants to still keep reading.
Is there more Bigfoot stuff, or was that it? I can't remember.
Let's see. No, but I mean, it's really good. I think we should read it.
Okay, yeah, we can read it and then we could talk more about Bigfoot. We did say and more on the title, so
Yeah, we did. And then we can always do
more.
we can always do a second Bigfoot episode or a third.
Uh,
Okay. So Ross says he will attempt to speak on the concept. The law of one has as one of its primal distortions the free will of distortion. Thus, each entity is free to accept, reject, or ignore the mind body spirit complexes about it and ignore the creation itself. There are many among your social memory complex distortion who, at this time space, engage daily, as you would put it, in the working upon the law of one in one of its primal distortions, that is, the ways of love. However, if this same entity, being biased from the depths of its mind body spirit complex towards love light, were then to accept responsibility for each moment of the time space accumulation of present moments available to it, such an entity can empower its progress in much the same way as we described the empowering of the cell of your social complex distortion to the confederation. That's a little bit of a lot. I'll just keep reading. Unless Brandon has a comment.
I just want to. I'm rereading it again because I'm trying to see what they said. The same entity being based on. Yeah, so they're basically. It looks like he's saying, however, the same entity being biased from the depths of mind body conflict towards love and light were to accept responsibility for each moment of the time space accumulation of present moments available to it. So it's basically saying, like, if you were in the present moment, you would kind of it would supercharge this thing that you have to do. It's kind of what I'm getting out of it, you know.
I like the concept of accepting responsibility for each moment.
Yeah. So it's like if you start to live in the present moment, accept responsibility for each moment and all this stuff, and not be a victim, right? You're not a victim, you're a victor. I think that's what supercharges your polarization to the positive.
Yeah, let me keep reading. So questioner says, would you state it in a little different way how you empower this call? He's confused. I am Ra. We understand you to speak now of our previous information. The call begins with one. This call is equal to infinity and is not, as you would say, counted. It is the cornerstone. The second call is added. The third call empowers or doubles the second, and so forth. Each additional caller doubling or granting power to all the preceding call. Thus, the call of many of your peoples is many, many powered and overwhelmingly heard to the infinite reaches of the one creation. Yeah.
Then also maybe I misunderstood. I'm sorry. Maybe if you are somebody who is more in the present moment, more taking responsibility for your actions and stuff, then your voice or whatever it is, your call is going to be heard more by these what do they
Okay.
call the distortion of the social complex distortion of the Confederation.
Something. Yeah. This is the part that's a little bit blurry for me. I'm not quite sure what he's talking about, but we're getting to a spot where it's pretty good. Questioner says, for general development of the reader of this book, could you state some of the practices or exercises to perform to produce an acceleration toward the law one? Ross says, I'm Ra. Exercise 1. This is the most clearly centered and usable within your illusion complex. Illusion complex. I love it.
Yeah.
The moment contains love. That is the lesson goal of this illusion or density. The exercise is to consciously seek that love in awareness and understanding distortions. The first attempt is the cornerstone. Upon this choosing rests the remainder of the life experience of an entity. The second seeking of love within the moment begins the addition. The third seeking powers the second, the fourth powering or doubling the third. As with the previous type of empowerment, there will be some loss of power due to flaws within the seeking and distortion of insincerity. However, the conscious statement of self to self of the desire to seek love is so central an act of will that as before the loss of power due to this friction is inconsequential. Okay.
Ooh.
That's a lot. All right. Exercise 2. The universe is one being. When a mind body spirit complex views another mind body spirit complex, see the creator. This is a helpful exercise.
See, you got
Dude,
it, everybody.
dude, dude. Exercise 3. Gaze within a mirror, see the creator. Exercise 4.
Just I was going to say the first one, I really think what he's talking about is repetition. Like you just have to keep trying and trying and trying. Like the first time is the cornerstone, right? Seeking of love within the moment begins the addition. So then you look to stay in the moment. I love this powers
Yeah.
from, and then your third one is to try to stay in the moment, even like you seek powers. What's going to help me stay in the present moment, right? And then the fourth powering or doubling the third. So it just keeps acting and acting and acting. And then it's like a snowball effect.
Hmm.
They could even be talking about meditation, something like that, or just any kind of form of self love or whatever. Love it.
Yeah.
Gaze in the mirror, though. That's great. See the creator. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Um,
An exercise 4. Gaze at the creation which lies about the mind body spirit complex of each entity. See the creator.
so they're
Wow.
just saying, look around and see
Mm-hmm.
the creator
Look
and
at
everything
everything and see the
and the
creator.
devil. And see, you look right at Aleister Crowley and his beautiful face smiling
And you
down on you
see
from
the
heaven, and
creator.
you see the creator.
You look at Helena Blavatsky and see the creator.
Yeah. Mean Mr.
Yeah.
Mustache.
I mean, Mr. Mustachio. All right. And then he says the foundation or prerequisite of these exercises is a predilection toward what may be called meditation. That's what you said, Brandon.
Oh yeah.
Contemplation or prayer. With this attitude, these exercises can be processed. Without it, the data will not sink down into the roots of the tree of mind, thus enabling and ennobling the body and touching the spirit. Hmm.
You
Well, the
just won't get it
next,
because if you don't meditate or do one of these practices, you're not going to be in the present moment enough to divorce yourself from the past and the future, past future thoughts. You're not going to be there enough to let this stuff sink in, I think is what he's saying.
yeah. Well, the
Or see
rest of
Bigfoot.
that, pardon me?
I said, or to see Bigfoot if you're not in the, maybe you have to be in the present moment to see Bigfoot. Maybe
Hmm,
this.
could be.
I keep
Well,
looking
the
outside in the woods, hoping that he'll just peek his
that
head up.
you'll see some
Never know.
glowing eyes.
That would be.
Whoever you see, it's going to be one of 3 types of Bigfoots, remember, because there are 3 types.
That's right.
So that, I mean, the rest talks a little bit more about Atlantis, Lemuria, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to do that section about see the creator because that was really cool.
That's right. A guy cuts you off in traffic. I'm sorry. A woman cuts you off in traffic. You see the creator in her.
Mm-hmm. And this last little bit is I'll share this one because it's the last mention in the actual entirety of the Law of One to mention Bigfoot, at least in the terminology Bigfoot. I looked up Sasquatch and I didn't find anything, but I didn't look up anything else. I didn't look up Yeti. I forgot to look up other words. Spoons earlier in the chat said she wonders if they mentioned skinwalkers. I
Oh,
could probably look those up too.
yeah. We should look up all kinds of words.
Yeah, definitely.
Bong
I
Jabar.
started looking up so much. Oh my gosh. I started like making notes about um with links about all my search results.
Wonder if they mentioned Dune.
Was
All of a
Dune
sudden, Rod
written?
just starts talking about Dune. It'd be great.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Dune was probably already written by then, right?
Yeah, 65. Not
All
10,
right. So
65. Go ahead. Go ahead.
this is session 64. And the questioner says, they talk about a bunch of stuff at the beginning and it's not related. So he says, Dr. Monroe, I understand, brought a four-toed Bigfoot cast by here the other day. Could you tell me which form of Bigfoot the cast was? Raw says, I am Raw. We can.
I love that. Yep, we can. What is it?
I know, question. And then he doesn't really answer in so many words. Okay, questioner says, I know it's totally unimportant, but as a service to Dr. Monroe, I thought I should ask that. I am Ra. This entity was one of the small group of thought forms. This one's the thought form kind,
Mm.
but they have a cast of his foot. All right, questioner says, he also asked, and I know this is unimportant, why there were no Bigfoot remains found. That is after the Bigfoot entities had died on our surface. He had asked why there had never been any remains of these entities found. Could you answer this for him? It's just of no importance, but just as a service to him, I ask. I am Raw. You may suggest that exploration of the caves, which underlie some of the western coastal mountain regions, that sounds like PNW, Pacific Northwest, of your continent will one day offer such remains. They will not be generally understood if this culture survives its if this culture survives in its present form long enough in your time measurement for this probability or possibility vortex to occur. There is enough energy for one more full query at this time. Wow.
Yeah, that's it's kind of I was saying about the caves, right? Like,
What's
and
that
maybe they
saying?
already had, they probably already have found the remains. I mean, um, my Sherry and the lady in our chat, I forgot how to say her last name, but she was saying that analog Ben is also what he goes by, but his YouTube channel is the Archivist, but he reads
Yes.
articles of all kinds of stuff they found, bones and giants and different things that so maybe Bigfoot remains have been found. I think it probably is more plausible that they have been found. It's just that
Mhm.
it was poo-pooed or shushed up
Or,
because you
like
can't
I
have a
mentioned,
nice I was
go ahead.
just I was gonna say because you can't have a nice materialistic society if you have things like Bigfoot run around that are unexplained. You know, people are gonna start to ask questions. They're not gonna they're not gonna be happy with their general hospital and you know, whatever the things kids are watching these days on TV.
Yeah. And like I had mentioned in episode 103, the most recent one before this, when we were talking about Bigfoot, that there are people who
Hmm.
have been hired to or have worked in the military, et cetera, um, to shoot some of them down and take their bodies, allegedly. So who knows? Um, Speedy Lee says, "Why does Raw talk like an AI?" That's interesting.
Yeah, that
That's a
is
good,
interesting, right?
yeah. Yeah, Zindra Shamania says, I recommend the Sasquatch Chronicles podcast if one wants to go deep into the Bigfoot rabbit hole. Yes, that's the one that I mostly end up listening to is the Sasquatch Chronicles. So,
And Sarcastic Warlock has quotes a verse that I think we've quoted before too. Isaiah 45:7. I form the light and create the darkness. I make
mm-hmm,
peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things.
mm-hmm.
Right. Now look in the mirror, sarcastic, and say,
See
I do
the
these
creator.
things. You're the creator. No,
See the
you
creator.
are. You
I know you are, but what am I?
yeah. Infinity. Oh, see?
And beyond.
Yeah, that's what they say too. I think it was like one of those movies, like, I know you are, but what am I? I know you are, what am I? And then someone's like, infinity.
Lucacina says, I want to see a small foot, less imposing. Oh my gosh. Well, that was fun.
A small Asian foot blue. Listen, this is the wrong show for that. No, I'm just yeah, that was fun. That was really interesting. I liked it. It looks like everybody had a really good time too. It's a
Yeah.
little divergent from our normal um serious topics, even though I try to bring the humor when I can. This is really cool. I mean, it could be really serious to somebody if they did see Bigfoot and it changed their life. we know people. We had Gordy Two Shoes, and he had not a Bigfoot experience, but he had some kind of other experience. And let me tell you, I don't know if something like that happened to me. It would definitely, I could see how it'd be hard because how are you going to explain it to other people? They might not believe you. I mean, these days, if something like that happened, I think it'd be different. But back in your normie kind of normal days or whatever, these days I'd just
Yeah.
be like, come on, but I'd just get Bigfoot on a podcast with me and be like, come on, man.
Yeah. Just find that lady that we talked about on that Sasquatch Chronicles episode. That if you want, you can go to episode 103 of Over Sharon. And I linked the Sasquatch Chronicles episode. I forgot the number in there, so you can check it out. But that's where he talks about a lady who has been in contact with them for, well, since the 70s or something like that. And she, she lives right next to them. She calls them her neighbors, and she babysits their babies, which they're not babies. I mean, they're big. And she
Biggie.
feeds them. She makes them muffins and stuff. And she lets them watch SpongeBob too.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. We need a giant SpongeBob costume going to the woods with it.
Yeah.
Well, let us know what you guys think. Comment. Let us know if there's anything else you want to talk about, any other mysteries that are going on in the world that you'd like to see Sharon and I kind of our point of view on it, what's going on, or have us look into it. I'm sure Sharon's going to go back into Law of One and search some more keywords. Maybe we can come up with something else.
Yeah. We
Um,
might talk more stuff that we find.
yeah, yeah, I like these shows. They're a lot of fun. We don't really have a plan. The plan today was just kind of like Bigfoot. Sharon had sent me that stuff. I read through it and I was like, oh yeah, this is great. And it's great that nobody else ever heard of it. So you were heard it here first, everybody. Law of One, Bigfoot material. That's awesome.
I'm sure somebody has heard of it, but I haven't seen it. So,
Yeah, yeah. It's not like it's making a lot of rounds. I am the beast. I am the light. Sarcastic. That's right. Be like children, including the insults. Yeah, yeah, right. I like it. And I think we could bust balls. We'll be fine, right? Well, thank you guys
mhm.
so much in the chat. Oh, look, we got Little Smurfs Eat Ivy. I would like to hear you talk about orbs in the sky and not the nighttime ones. I have seen them multiple times and only during the daytime. Oh, like lightning balls, orbs. I've heard of like ball lightning and stuff
Well,
like
okay. Speaking of that, just from what I've heard on some of those Sasquatch Chronicle type podcasts, uh, these are kind of could be related to the Sasquatch's appearances. So I've heard that they're around sometimes right before a Sasquatch encounter. And like this man that I remember most recently, he said he saw two orbs of light. And then shortly after, he saw two white Sasquatches, and they freaked him out. So I don't know if they could be uh, able to shapeshift, or they also have these energetic abilities to bring about these energy light orbs around them before they appear. Who knows?
well, you think about the Dracula story, right? Allegedly in some stories he can turn into a bat and fly away. Maybe these Bigfoot, the one, like Rob was saying, if they're energy, um, what did he call them? Energy distortions or something, or I'll let
I
you
don't
find that.
remember.
I'll finish my point. But so maybe those are the type of Bigfoots that you're talking about, and maybe they can move like that, and then they just turn into energy, and then they fly away. Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I have
Mhm.
videos and even talked to Clyde Lewis about it when I was on Aftermath. Interesting. Maybe you got some Bigfoot
Little Smurfs
energy.
eat ivy.
Yeah, maybe you got some Bigfoot energy following you around. I wonder if they have a message for you, something to say. Talk about
Yeah.
big steps for big wisdom. Thanks, guys. Yeah, thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Adam. Very cool. I didn't get to follow too much in the chat. So pardon my not shouting people out if I missed you. I'm sorry. Thank you for being here. We have 15 people right now.
Awesome.
Sarah G says the cryptid crossover.
Oh, it's a cryptid crossover, like an episode. Well,
Little
we're
Swift says I saw them through binoculars once. They actually weren't lit up. That's interesting.
ooh, interesting. Yeah.
Mm, wow. She asked one what it wanted and it left. Wow. That's also interesting.
It's like, ignore me. It's like, I'm just here to observe. Stop looking at me.
Yeah, could it be?
I just want to observe. Yeah, that's interesting stuff. So much speculation. I mean, it's hard to know exactly, what these things could be, but I think that could be something plausible if they were seen around a Bigfoot. Maybe not the ones that little Smurf is talking about eating ivy, but the ones from the show you were talking about. I think that could be totally plausible. So maybe it's possible for us to learn one day how to turn into orbs and just disappear. That'd be a cool way to end the show. All right, guys, see you later.
Well,
No, it's like,
poof.
hang on. Are you ready? Hang on.
Speaking
All right, guys, see you
speaking
later.
speaking of leaving and intentionally
There goes
leaving this
Brandon.
realm, I watched that movie called Little Buddha, which I had never even heard of back in the day. Keanu Reeves actually played Buddha. I thought that was so funny. I
Really?
Yeah, I never would have like expected him to play such a role. It was back in like 93, 94
Oh, I
time
never
frame.
knew about
It was
that.
before
Wow.
he did The Matrix.
Yeah, yeah.
And he plays, but it's set in modern times, and then it's because it's like they're trying to find the Dalai Lama who recent or some lama who just died. They're trying to find his reincarnation, and they find two in Nepal and they find a little boy in the States. And so the story is about finding this lama, the reincarnation of this lama. And it's a cute little story. So they basically, the reason that you kind of travel back into time and you do uh, um, it's because they're reading a book about Buddha. And so that's telling the story. And so that's kind of like the flashback. And then you see the story of Buddha and um what's his name plays who plays Neo.
Oh, Keanu.
um
That's
yeah,
like
Keanu
Point Break
Reeves.
Keanu Reeves too. That was like when he was young.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah,
yeah,
he's very young in this movie.
almost
But
Bill and Ted's levels.
yeah, but not to spoil not to do spoiler alert, but I'm going to spoil it a little because there's this concept in with these Tibetan monks and things where they're ready to go, and when their mission and they feel like their mission is done, they can sit in a meditation pose for a very long time, and they can intentionally decide to leave the realm and just be done. And then when they are, their body just will like slump over, and then the monks around know that that's what happened, and then they put a cover over his head and whatnot. But yeah, so intentionally leaving the realm, I mean, like, I'm like, you and I were talking about this when we first started the channel or the podcast. Like,
Yeah,
I want to intentionally leave. I want to know when I'm leaving. I want to know what it's about.
just walk out of here. Just be like, Boop. Just see, I just turned into an orb. Everybody, see the special effects that we bring here in the Oversharing Show. Hi. All right, I'm back.
Uh,
NTP silly humor. All right,
yeah.
everybody. Well, I think we could wrap it up. We've been going just about over 2 hours. Looks,
Yeah, thanks for everyone in the chat. I didn't
yeah,
get
thank
to
you
read
guys so
everything,
much.
but yeah.
208.
Yeah, so
And our
we just had a
average
good
view duration right now is 43 minutes and 54 seconds, which let me tell you
that's
something.
a
Yeah,
lot.
that's really good for YouTube. So thank you guys so much for hanging out because that means that a lot of people hanged out. Y'all hanged out. A lot of people hung out here till the end, and then
Yeah.
people that
Now
just
there's
watched for a
16
while.
people as we're leaving.
Ah, sweet
Thank you
16.
for you final little joiners.
Well, the ending's always the best part anyway. It's a cool part. So you guys are here for it. So you get to witness the ending. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you to go to the website, morelawsmoreproblems.com, click on the Oversharing tab, and there's several ways to support us there. financially, but we always say the best way to support us is to subscribe, like the video, share it around. And the best way is Thursdays, come hang out in the chat with us. We always have a fun chat. I was saying it earlier in the show. We have the best darn chat on the internet. Joe P is quoted as saying, this is the only chat on the internet that makes him not want to kill himself. Thank you, Joe. He's a little extreme. I know a couple other chat groups that are cool too, but I get it, man. I love you.
Yeah.
Um, Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was
I
just
was
going to say,
go ahead.
I want to say something about someone saying something in the chat before we end. So
Yeah,
just go
yeah.
ahead.
Oh, I was just saying. So that's the best way to support us. Just be here every Thursday when we premiere or when we go live.
All right. So Zindra says, I went in deep on the cryptids last summer, but I had to stop because I became too scared to sleep. Are they real? Is it just fear mongering propaganda? If the powers that be know we are creators, I would like to encourage Zindra by saying that we don't know what they are, but we don't have to fear the unknown. But anyway, I'll let Brandon also speak to this.
No, I get it because I think there was a time where I used to get scared of those things too, and then I just bought a bunch of guns and I no. No, it could be daunting and scary, but the way we look at it here is that everything that's kind of, it does sound a little new agey, but everything that's going to happen is, I feel like it's what's meant to happen in this way. So it's all things we can learn from. And I mean, if you have a cryptid, like, wouldn't that be the coolest way? I always say this about, I'm going to back up a little bit, right? So anytime I used to go to the beach a lot, I'd go swimming a lot, travel, whatever, and people would be like, "Oh, aren't you afraid of sharks? You're going to swimming down in Florida and South Carolina, all these places. Aren't you afraid of sharks?" And I'm like, wouldn't that be the coolest way to die, to get eaten by a shark? I mean, nobody dies that way, right? Everyone, they die in, mundane, boring ways. I think that would be a really cool way to go. So if you were killed by a cryptid, I mean, you could be like, on the way out. Um, but I think really it's about more like trusting the plan type of stuff and getting to know yourself really well to overcome the fear of death. Because honestly, everything that's born dies. And I feel like if you can accept it and accept that you're going to die, this is something I went through. I had kind of an acceptance of my own death. It's not as scary as it used to be. And I'm not saying I want to go. I want to sit here and, make as many oversharing shows as I can, especially about Bigfoot. This is great. So I'm not in a rush to go anywhere, but I feel like when it's my time, then I will have to depart this realm. And I'm not as scared as a cryptid or whatever. But then again, I've never seen one up face to face. So if I do, I'll let you know what happens. But I'm sure I'll probably, like I said, try to podcast with it. And most likely, being the capybara that I am, I probably will make friends with it and hang out with it. My phone will melt, so I won't be able to take pictures because you always hear those stories of like people's phones screwing up and stuff. So, but that's what I could say. And I'd say just keep watching the Oversharon show.
Yes. And
That's fine.
Dissident Jones asked what movie that was. I put it in the chat, but it was called Little Buddha, that movie that I mentioned.
Oh, I gotta check it
So,
out. Awesome.
oh,
Anyone
yeah.
else in the chat? Are we about ready to stick a fork in this one? No fear here, Trisha. Good to see you. Hope you're doing
Yeah.
well. I did see her
Yep.
earlier, but I don't know if we gave her a shout out. Yeah, shout out to everybody. Sarah
Yeah.
G, Trish, Tony. What's up, Tony? I saw you in there a little earlier.
Yeah. He said he was listening, but he was working.
Good for you. Adam, Joe. I didn't even see you in here. Joe, what's up, Joe?
Oh, I didn't even see Joe either.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
there he
needed
is.
nothing else and just chose to leave. Stop breathing. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
A lot of
Mm.
homeless people seem to do that. That's great. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, we
To
weren't
do
even,
what? Just die
yeah,
and leave?
to just kind of
Maybe.
like out of here. Well, think
Perhaps.
about it. Like, if there's not ashrams, like, if you're somebody who comes to this, like, get enlightened or whatever it is, right? And
Mhm.
you don't have a YouTube channel or whatever, and you're just some guy, a boomer or whatever, like, maybe things you just can't. It kind of reminds me of the ending of Mad Men, that TV show Mad Men, where the guy just has a spiritual experience and he was this dirtbag salesman forever that would just womanize and drink all day, but then he has this experience and he ends up living in like this crazy ashram or whatever. But if you don't have that to do, you just maybe you just become homeless because you can't deal with it. Like if you have the severe dark night of the soul and it's just too much. So maybe they do go and become homeless, and then they're just like a wise homeless man. And then one day they're like, I don't need to be here anymore. And then they're out. But it makes sense that they would end up in the homeless population. I mean, if a guy
Interesting.
lives on a mountaintop, he's homeless, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah. So
that's our shout out to the chat. Thank you guys, everybody, so much for hanging out. And we'll see you next week. So, what do we say to the good people, Sharon?
Speedy Lee said, please make it 3 more minutes. I don't know when she said that, but maybe it's because there's like some sort of 33 involved. I don't know.
We have been going for 2:14:38, so I don't know if that.
Okay. Well, what we say to the good people is that once you start over Sharon,
Then you totally stop being a Karen.
that is absolutely correct.
And remember, we're not trying to tell you how to live.
But maybe we're just giving you some tips on how to live a little bit more in the present moment, perhaps.
Exactly. All right, everybody.
Okay.
Until next week, we'll see you later. Take care. Have a good
Ciao.
one. Ciao. Good weekend. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Oh man, that was awesome. Our